from apes can generally be considered true. All modern primates, including humans, share a common ancestor. Our evolutionary branches separated from it many millions of years ago. But long before this, the ancestors of all vertebrates were marine inhabitants who came to land. Some adaptations acquired by ancient fish during evolution have been preserved in our bodies to this day. Today, we'll tell you how they appeared and evolved, and why they can also be safely called human ancestors. Subscribe to the Age of Dinosaurs channel. This will allow you to learn a lot of interesting things about the evolution of life on our planet, and with the help of likes and comments under our videos, you can help tell other science lovers and ordinary viewers of this site about the achievements of science and the problems of modern ecology. The history of fish development began more than 500 million years ago. Then, in the warm seas of the Cambrian period, there lived creatures more similar to worms than to the common crucian carp, pike, or even sharks. One of them was a strange creature called Pichia. Now, it's difficult to say whether this was the ancestor of all vertebrates, but undoubtedly, it was someone with a similar structure and lifestyle. The remains of this creature were first discovered more than 100 years ago in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. Researcher Charles Walcott, when describing the find, classified the Pichia as a bristleworm. This happened due to the ring structure of the body and the antennas on the head. Much later, other paleontologists drew attention to the strange feature of the body of this primitive animal. Firstly, the Pichia discovered a notochord, an elastic organ stretched along the entire body, which became the prototype of the future spine. And secondly, the structure of its muscles turned out to be characteristics of later chordates. The age of these remains was about 500 million years ago. It became the oldest chordate known at that time. This find confirmed scientists' assumptions about the time of their origin. The dimensions of this animal ranged from 1.5 to 6 centimeters. There were 2 fins on the back and belly of the elongated body. The Pichia's head had a rounded shape with 2 elastic tentacles that were used as organs of touch. The functions of the mouth were performed by openings at the base of the head. Around them were 9 pairs of tentacles, which could be external gills. At the same time, this creature did not yet have eyes. The most interesting thing is that the organ that researchers mistook for a notochord turned out to be something else. This formation was much thicker than the notochords of other animals. Its purpose is currently unknown, and scientists simply call it a spinal organ. The notochord itself was located under the spinal organ and therefore was not immediately discovered by paleontologists. Also, at the beginning of the Cambrian period, chordates became more similar to modern fish, but were still more worm-like. One of these animals was Hycochthys. The remains of this creature were discovered in 1999 in China. Its length didn't exceed 2.5 centimeters, but by the standards of its time, it was a very progressive animal. The most important evolutionary steps of these primitive fish were the presence of gill breathing, the transformation of the notochord, and the development of the brain. They had a pronounced head and up to 9 gill slits on each side. There was a wide fin on the back. Another one was on the belly closer to the tail. The fins were supported by radial cartilages. The fins of modern fish-like creatures, such as lampreys or other cyclostomes, are arranged in approximately the same way. Hycochthys also acquired full-fledged eyes and other sensory organs. Perhaps these creatures also had hearing. To process all the information received through the senses, they needed a fairly developed brain. It's believed that it was quite comparable to the brain of modern cyclostomes. The skin of these animals was covered with mucus, like lampreys or hagfish. The muscles of Hycochthys were arranged in a zigzag pattern, like those of modern fish. The notochord was short, but more developed than that of Pichia. According to some features, it was close to the structure of the cartilaginous spine. This body structure allowed them to swim differently from arthropods. It's believed that they kept in large flocks and lived in benthic areas. In the Ordovician period, the first jawless fish, or heliaspids, already appeared. They acquired durable shells that protected them from the most formidable predators of that time, crustaceans and other giant arthropods. But even this did not help them survive long enough. All the findings available to scientists indicate that they became extinct approximately 40 million years after their appearance. However, a recent discovery made in China showed that adders were the first creatures with double fins. It was they who became the prototype of the forelimbs that formed after life emerged on land. Which means, thanks to the evolution of jawless fish, we got our hands. Evidence for this theory emerged after the discovery of remains approximately 436 million years old. This creature was named Tugiospis, after the name of the people living in the area where they were discovered. Before this discovery, it was believed that paired fins in fish were formed from a single fin running along the entire body. But this theory has not been confirmed by anything. When Tugiospis was discovered, clear imprints of leathery fins were revealed on both sides of the body. This discovery revolutionized all scientific ideas about the evolution of not only fish, but also all vertebrates. There's a version that the modern descendants of asps were not fish, but snakes. The next step in the evolution of fish was the appearance of true gnathostomes. Scientists attribute this to an increase in the number of freshwater bodies. Outwardly, they were already exactly the same as the inhabitants of modern seas, rivers, and lakes. But there were also significant differences. The jawed fishes were divided into armored or placoderms, and maxillobranchs or acanthodes. But despite the presence of powerful armor and large sizes, armored fish became completely extinct approximately 350 million years ago. One of the most formidable and large predators of the Devonian period is the famous Dunkleosteus. This fish had a length of up to 6 meters and weighed up to 1 ton. The presence of a powerful tail and fins, as well as a streamlined shape, allowed Dunkleosteus to develop great speed. But the main weapon of this giant was its powerful jaws, capable of biting any prey almost in half. Acanthodes took a completely different path of development. They were not large in size and grew a much larger number of fins. Some of them had 6 to 7 pairs of fins. Later, some of them were transformed into sharp spines, which served for protection from predators. There's also an assumption that with the help of such unusual fins, it was easier for fish to move through shallow rivers overgrown with aquatic plants. The largest of them did not exceed 2 meters in length, but the remains of acanthodes are found almost all over the globe. Moreover, among them there were both predators and those who ate plant foods. Some acanthodes fed on plankton, and they all swam much faster than placoderms. But they lived 100 million years longer than their armored relatives. New varieties of fish originated from them, some species of which became the first animals to reach land. And if these underwater centipedes had decided to come to land, then the history of the development of life on Earth would have taken a completely different path. There probably wouldn't be any dinosaurs or mammals, or maybe we would just have more limbs. The descendants of acanthodes were cartilaginous and bony fish. This happened on the border of the Silurian and Devonian periods, and since then, the appearance of these two classes has remained virtually unchanged. It's believed that they originated independently from different species of gnathostome fish. Modern cartilaginous fish include sharks, rays, and chimeras. They never acquired a swim bladder and some other adaptations characteristic of other classes of fish. Scientists attribute this to the fact that their ancestors first lived in stagnant freshwater bodies of water, and then moved to the seas and oceans. Denser seawater allows them to stay afloat without a swim bladder. The spine of these fish consists of cartilage, which gave the name to the whole class. That's why from the extinct representatives of the class, like the giant megalodon shark, scientists only get huge teeth and jaws. But the ancestors of bony fish lived in running water. They often had to fight the current, and for this they developed many different devices. They allowed this class of fish to become the most progressive of them. Today, bony fish make up about 50% of all vertebrate species on Earth. The bone skeleton turned out to be much stronger than the cartilaginous one. It performs support functions better. At the same time, its mass is less and it occupies less volume. The presence of a swim bladder and more developed gill apparatus allows bony fish to live in a wide variety of water bodies. Also, this class of fish has more developed vision. Bony fish, in turn, divided into lobe-finned and ray-finned fish. Most modern fish species, more than 95%, are ray-finned. This is approximately 20,000 species. Ray-finned species include all types of herring and sturgeon, perch, catfish, mullet, cod, and many others. The main feature of lobe-finned fish is the muscular lobe at the base of the fins. It was this mechanism that allowed the ancient lobe-finned fish from the lobe-finned group to move on land between drying up shallow bodies of water. This was the first step towards the transition of life to land and the emergence of amphibians. The further development of the descendants of these fish led to the emergence of all other species of vertebrates, including humans. Any substance in a certain concentration becomes toxic to a living organism. For example, exceeding the permissible dose of table salt by 10 times can lead to human death. Also, the most serious consequences occur when there's an excess of oxygen or ordinary water. Mineral elements such as mercury, lead, arsenic, sulfur, or cadmium are dangerous to the health of people and animals, but they're widely used in many different industries and are even included in some medications. These substances can accumulate in the bodies of animals and plants. When a certain concentration is exceeded, they react with proteins and amino acids. As a result, disturbances in respiratory processes, muscle activity, and nervous activity are possible. Without immediate medical attention, such poisonings cause serious illness or lead to the death of a living organism. Some animals and plants have learned to produce various biological substances, as well as accumulate them in their bodies in different ways. Most often they're based on alkaloids. Many of them are deadly to humans. At the moment, about 800,000 insects live on our planet that use poison or so-called chemical protection. Also, out of 3.5 thousand snakes, more than 400 are poisonous. Of 300,000 plants, about 1,000 are poisonous to humans. These poisons are used for both defense and attack. Those who choose defensive tactics, thanks to poisons, become unpleasant to the taste, and sometimes deadly to their enemies. But there are almost always creatures that are immune to these substances. For example, the poisonous parts of the spotted arum can be freely eaten by certain species of birds. These birds are simply distributors of plant seeds, otherwise arum would not be able to reproduce. The hemolymph of ladybugs acts similarly. This bright orange liquid is an analog of blood and, at the same time, lymph of mammals. However, it contains the toxic alkaloid cantharidin and can be released through the chitinous joints of the insect. Even tarantulas don't risk messing with them. They simply push the ladybugs out of their hole without even trying to attack. Despite the low concentration of the toxic substance for humans, the venom of ladybugs can cause skin irritation. Therefore, these insects have practically no natural enemies. But everything in nature is strictly balanced. Every creature, even the most poisonous one, has developed natural enemies in the process of evolution. They've developed immunity to poison, or they learn to bypass defense mechanisms. For example, some insects and caterpillars don't eat the poisonous veins of plants, eating only the green pulp around them. Without such a natural regulator, any ecosystem faces death. This is exactly what happened in the case of the spread of the South American aga toad to Australia. It was brought by local sugarcane farmers. A total of 103 individuals came to Australia in the middle of the last century. In a short time, the resettled amphibian multiplied and rid their fields of pests. But the joy of the people of Australia was very short-lived. The toad, useful for the economy, has caused a real environmental disaster in some regions of the continent. The aga toad is a poisonous animal. Their skin is capable of secreting a caustic substance. Therefore, local predators quickly stopped trying to hunt new prey. Some of them, having tasted the aga toad, simply died. There are known cases of poisoning and death of people. One day, a local healer advised a farmer to put a piece of toad skin in his mouth for a toothache. Unfortunately for the patient, he came across exactly that same poisonous toad. Now, there are so many of these toads that measures must be taken by the country's leadership. In fact, sugarcane breeders don't need it now either. A couple of decades after its relocation, pesticides began to be used to protect against pests. South America is home to several other species of deadly poisonous frogs. One of them is a small dart frog. It's considered the most poisonous vertebrate animal on the planet. Like many other poisonous creatures, dart frogs are brightly colored. Their body is painted bright red and their legs are blue. For this, local residents nicknamed her the frog in jeans. It's capable of accumulating a deadly toxin in special storage areas under the skin. At the moment of danger, the poison is released through the pores to the surface. This feature's long been noticed by local Indians. The poison of the dart frog's long been used by them to poison hunting arrows, just like the famous plant poison curare. The basis of poison dart frogs is the alkaloid batrachotoxin. It's able to penetrate the nerve and muscle cells of an animal or person. This increases the permeability of the cell membrane to sodium ions. The dielectric potential of nerve cells changes, and they lose the ability to conduct nerve impulses. The result of this effect is arrhythmia of the heart muscle and cardiac arrest. Only a certain type of snake is immune to the poison of these frogs. It's noteworthy that in the body of the poison dart frog, there are no glands that produce this toxin. It's believed that they got it through food, probably from a certain species of termite or other insect. The frogs themselves are resistant to this poison. Due to the small number of natural enemies, dart frogs have adapted to lay a small amount of eggs. Other species of frogs survive on large numbers of eggs and tadpoles. The female dart frog lays only 3 to 4 eggs at a time. The male guards the eggs he fertilizes, and the female carries the hatched tadpoles to a safe place. Tadpoles grow in the axils of tree leaves at high altitudes. In newborn frogs, the toxic substance is completely absent from the body. They need some time to accumulate it in the process of eating insects. It's noteworthy that dart frogs raised in captivity never acquire these chemical weapons during their lives. But the poison dart frog is rather an exception to the rule. Most often, the poison of those animals that choose it for protection is not fatal. Their task is to give the victim time to escape and show that it's better to choose someone else for lunch. Those predators who have at least once been exposed to toxins avoid poisonous animals. But predators use poison to solve completely different problems. They need to immobilize or kill their prey as quickly and effectively as possible. This requires a high concentration of the toxic substance in the liquid injected into the victim's body. You can also simply inject a lot of this liquid at once. An example of such hunters are snakes. The venom of one of the most dangerous snakes, the black mamba, is not a potent toxin, but at one time they inject such an amount into the victim's body that a large ungulate or a person can die within a couple of minutes. In the issue about the evolution of snakes, we talked in detail about how the mechanism for producing and injecting venom appeared and developed. Modern snakes have a special structure of fangs and special glands behind them. Apparently, poisonous creatures appeared on our planet at the dawn of evolution. Different types of toxins are used by both the simplest unicellular organisms and fairly developed mammals. A large number of poisonous species of animals and plants live in Australia. There are many stereotypes about this continent. One of them just says that everything in Australian nature is created with the goal of poisoning you. This is partly true. Australia has long been separated from the rest of the continents, and many species have evolved in a different way from their relatives. Some ant species have relatives on other continents, but these relatives, during the course of evolution, lost the ability to produce poison, and on the remote continent, poisonous snakes, insects, jellyfish, mollusks, and spiders remained. Most of these animals are poisonous. And among the jellyfish living in coastal waters, all are poisonous to one degree or another. And they're one of the most ancient creatures on the planet. The earliest of them appeared more than 500 million years ago. Also, poisonous cephalopods have lived off the coast of Australia for more than 300 million years. Among them are many squid, octopus, and cuttlefish. Interestingly, venomous snakes appeared in Australia much later. Their ancestors migrated from Asia to the Pacific Islands. About 60 million years ago, the continent moved closer to the pole, and most of the local reptiles became extinct due to cooling. It so happened that the first to repopulate Australia were poisonous snakes from the family of anterior-toothed asps. This family includes the most poisonous of modern snakes. Currently, approximately 65% of Australian snakes are venomous. Worldwide, this figure is approximately 15%. Even later, people moved here. Now in the humid regions of the continent, there are huge modern cities, farms, factories, and pastures. And poisonous animals are gradually colonizing these lands. Such creatures are funnel-shaped spiders. So far, 13 deaths have been confirmed after their bite. But in 1981, an antidote was developed. Since then, not a single person has died from the bite of these spiders. Even among the placental mammals of Australia, there are those who use poison. We're talking about the platypus. This strange creature was unable to develop a stomach, but was armed with poisonous thorns. They're located on the platypus's hind legs and are used to protect and fight for females. But there are other types of poisonous mammals on our planet. Among them are the American short-tailed shrew and the Haitian slit-tail. The shrew lives in North America and is a relatively large shrew. Its poisonous saliva helps to hunt animals much larger than the shrew, with a length of no more than 10 centimeters and a weight of up to 30 grams. This predator even dares to attack snakes. As the name suggests, the Haitian slit-tooth lives on the island of Haiti. Also, a related species of these animals lives on the island of Cuba, but until recently, it was considered completely extinct. In 2003, in Cuba, one specimen was discovered in the wild. Before the colonization of the islands by humans, these animals had no natural enemies. Therefore, they have not developed effective defense mechanisms. The structure of their poisonous glands and teeth resemble the mechanism used by snakes. They're used for hunting. It's noteworthy that the gap-tooths themselves have no immunity to their poison. They often die in fights with their relatives. Another symbol of the green continent, the koala, constantly poisons itself with a dangerous toxin of its own free will. These teddy bear-like creatures have evolved a special feeding mechanism. They eat only shoots and leaves of eucalyptus. Not only do they not contain very many calories, they're also poisonous to all other animals. Over millions of years of evolution, a special microflora has formed in the koala's stomach to resist the action of the toxin. It's noteworthy that newborn animals don't have such immunity. In order to introduce the necessary microorganisms into their digestive tract, babies have to eat their mother's stool. With such a meager diet and constant poisoning of the body, koalas have to move as little as possible and sleep almost constantly. This way, the poison is removed from the body faster. So all the cuteness of these animals is caused by constant poisoning. Apparently, there used to be more poisonous mammals on the earth. Until recently, Bisonalveus brownie was considered the most ancient venomous mammal. This creature lived in North America about 60 million years ago. It's noteworthy that his poisonous glands were located under his lower fangs. But recently, a discovery was made that changed the scientific view of the development of poisonous vertebrates. When studying the remains of a Therocephalus eucambazea, one of the ancestors of mammals, using modern methods, it turned out that this creature was poisonous. Its remains were discovered in South Africa back in 1932 and 1966. This creature, about the size of a modern dog, lived here about 260 million years ago. Even poisonous snakes appeared on Earth about 100 million years later. It would seem that only one group of animals don't use toxic substances: birds. But some feathered inhabitants of the planet also use toxins to protect themselves from harmful insects. In 1989, a group of scientists studied thrush flycatchers living in New Guinea. In the process of catching, the birds inflicted small wounds on people with their claws and beaks. After applying the cuts to the mouth, the researchers' lips went numb. It turned out that the skin, feathers, and internal organs of the birds are saturated with a toxin similar to the poison of poison dart frogs. Flycatchers don't have many enemies in their natural environment. Therefore, at first, scientists assumed that the birds acquired these weapons after the colonization of the region by people. But it's most likely that in this way they protect themselves from bird lice. Thus, it turns out that all groups of animals, from unicellular algae to vertebrate mammals, use toxic substances independently of each other. Plants and mushrooms can also be poisonous. Moreover, wildlife continues to develop mechanisms for using poisons. And since time immemorial, people have been using poisons for medicinal purposes and religious rituals and inventing antidotes. But the nature of these toxins is so diverse that a universal remedy for the bites of poisonous animals has not yet been invented. Even to neutralize the venom of different snakes, you need to use different types of serum. Like all processes in the evolution of life, the use of chemical weapons continues to evolve. And as we invade the natural environment, people increasingly have to deal with poisonous animals and plants. Despite the fact that dinosaurs became extinct many millions of years ago, real lizards still live on Earth. This is the second name for such an unusual animal as the pangolin. They belong to placental mammals. At the same time, there's practically no animal that pangolins resemble in appearance. Due to the same lifestyle and feeding method, they have common features with anteaters and aardvarks, but these animals are not even distant relatives of pangolins. In the process of their evolutionary development, lizards follow their own path. Today, we'll tell you how these unusual animals appeared on Earth and who their ancestors were. Subscribe to the Age of Dinosaurs channel. From our issues, you'll learn about the evolution of different species of living beings, environmental problems, and modern society. And thanks to comments and likes, these are seen by an increasing number of science lovers from different countries. Also, the activity of our viewers helps in the work of the channel creators. Modern pangolins live in both southern and central Africa and Southeast Asia. Their length without their tail ranges from 30 to 88 centimeters. The tail can even be longer than the rest of the body. In case of danger, the animal very quickly curls up into a ball, covering its unprotected paws and belly. And the name pangolin itself comes from the Malay word meaning to roll up into a ball. The main difference between all 8 species of these creatures is a kind of armor that protects the upper part of the body from the middle of the head to the tip of the tail. This armor consists of individual pointed scales. The structure of the scales is in no way similar to the armor of reptiles or fish scales. It's noteworthy that the scales tend to wear off over time, but then they grow again, and their number remains unchanged throughout life. Pangolin's diet consists only of ants and termites. The animal tears apart their homes with sharp, long claws and launches its long, sticky tongue into it. Its length can reach 40 centimeters, and it's attached to the muscles located in the chest and upper pelvis. The pangolin's tongue is also covered with saliva, which attracts insects. They have no teeth. Their functions are performed by keratinized growths on the walls of the stomach. Pangolins also sometimes swallow small pebbles, which also help grind food. Depending on the type and size of the pangolin, up to 2 kilograms of ants or termites can be digested in its stomach at the same time. The eyes of these animals are protected from ant bites by thick eyelids. Pangolins' vision and hearing are not very well developed. The same cannot be said about their sense of smell. This is quite typical for an animal that's predominantly nocturnal. Some pangolins can easily cling to tree branches with their tails. Others can stand on their hind legs, leaning on the same tail. Pangolins live alone and meet only to procreate. Cubs are usually born in winter. African species give birth to only 1 baby, while Asian species give birth to up to 3. At birth, their body is not covered with hair, and the scales are soft to the touch. They begin to harden a few days after birth. The cubs feed on mother's milk for only about 1 month. Then they gradually begin to switch to insects. The earliest ancestors of modern lizards, according to scientists, appeared at the very beginning of the Paleogene. The earliest finds of ancient pangolins date back to approximately 47 to 49 million years ago. These were animals such as Urodimandua and Euromanis. Based on the names, it follows that they originated in Europe, and not in Africa or Asia. During that time, it was much warmer on the European continent. These primitive mammals bore little resemblance to modern representatives of the family due to the lack of that very unique scaly armor. Urodimandua is known from only 1 find. From these remains, we could say that the animal was about 90 centimeters long, had long claws, and an elongated snout. Based on these characteristic features, it was first classified as an anteater due to its complete lack of armor. Even the name itself means European Tamandua, and Tamandua is one of the genera of anteaters. Even now, debates about the identity of this animal are ongoing among scientists who adhere to different versions. Scientists know even less about Euromanis. The remains of both animals were found in Germany in the so-called Messel Pit. Almost parallel to these creatures, in the same area lived a creature much more similar to the modern pangolin. It's called Eomanis. It means early or dawn pangolin. Eomanis was about 50 centimeters long and had longer legs than modern pangolins. By all indications, this creature could be considered a transitional link on the path of evolution to real pangolins. Its limbs and most of its tail were not completely covered in scales, but the back and head were protected by the same shell as that of modern representatives of the pangolin family. After studying the stomach contents of these fossil pangolins, scientists found that in addition to ants, they also ate several types of plants. Between 42 and 46 million years ago, pangolins appeared, which were practically no different from those that live on Earth now. They belonged to the Patriominid family and were without a doubt the ancestors or closest relatives of modern pangolins. Among them, the most interesting and studied by science are Cryptomanus and Patriomanus. The only known remains of Cryptomanus were discovered by Roy Chapman Andrews' expedition to China in 1928. This find consisted of well-preserved hind limbs and scattered remains of other parts of the skeleton. They were labeled as fossils of an unknown lizard, and remained in museum storage for more than 80 years. This find was described only in 2009. There's clearly insufficient data on the structure and lifestyle of Cryptomanus at the moment. We could say with confidence that the length of this body could reach 120 centimeters. Moreover, from 35 to 55 centimeters fell on the tail. Patriomanus is currently the only species of pangolin that lived in North America. In total, the fossilized remains of 6 individuals were found here, ranging in age from 33 to 37 million years. Scientists have all the bones of this creature at their disposal. Therefore, we can have the most detailed idea of its appearance. The total length of this pangolin ranged from 40 to 60 centimeters. The length of the skull was just over 9 centimeters, and the jaw length was about 7 centimeters. Externally, it was very similar to modern Asian varieties. The fingers, ears, and hair between the plates of the Patriomanus were a little longer, and the claws, on the contrary, were a little shorter. Also, they had a more prehensile tail. Apparently, this type of pangolin was adapted to an arboreal lifestyle. About 28 million years ago, a lizard lived on the territory of modern France, which scientists confidently call the direct ancestor of modern pangolins. His name was Necromanus, which literally means extinct pangolin. It became extinct about 12 million years ago. At the moment, 3 species of Necromanus have been identified, but debate about their classification has not subsided for more than 100 years. Descendants of Necromanus began colonizing Africa and Southeast Asia. This saved the entire family from global extinction due to the cooling of the planet's climate that began approximately 14 million years ago. Those of them who remained to live in Europe were not lucky. They were unable to adapt to such changes in living conditions and completely died out. Among them were the Hungarian pangolin. They lived in this country in the Pleistocene. Also, for some reason, a separate species of pangolin that lived on the island of Java has not survived to this day. Officially, it's called the Old Javan pangolin. Moreover, pangolins now live in Java. They're simply called Javanese pangolin. The spread of these unusual creatures across the Asian regions of the Earth began approximately 12 million years ago. These were pangolins from the Manus genus. Exactly the same ones still live in China and India. And in the Philippine Islands and Malaysia live paramanes that separated from them, a separate branch of the same genus. The reason for this division was the rise in sea levels. Island populations became separated from their continental relatives and began to develop in their own way. Thus, the following types of pangolins now live in Asia: Filipino, Indian, Javanese, and eared. The same pangolins that migrated from Europe to Africa a little earlier, about 13 million years ago, ended up in real jungles. They were forced to adapt to an arboreal lifestyle. They're now known under the common name tree lizard or Photogenus. There are currently 2 species living in the forests of Africa: the long-tailed or four-toed pangolin and the white-bellied, also known as tree pangolin. It's noteworthy that four-toed lizards led a diurnal lifestyle. Apparently, the change in the active time of day once served as the reason for division into separate species. About 9 million years ago, representatives of a species of arboreal pangolin, or some related species, emerged from the forests into the open spaces of the African savanna. This is how pangolins, belonging to the group of smuts, appeared. There are also 2 types of them, giant and savanna. They differ from each other slightly, and the reasons for their separation, just like other species, are purely geographical. For a long time, it was believed that smuts were exclusively African aborigines, but not so long ago, the remains of another similar species were discovered in Romania. Their age doesn't exceed 2 million years. This means that with the next warming, pangolins again tried to colonize Europe, but this attempt was unsuccessful. Now these unusual animals are in danger of extinction. This is especially true for Asian varieties. In some countries in this region, pangolin meat's considered a delicacy. Therefore, these slow-moving animals have become the target of poaching. But even this could help in the study of pangolins. Last year, a large shipment of live pangolins was seized from smugglers in China. Studying their genetic material allowed scientists to identify a new species of these animals. It was called the mysterious pangolin, or Manus mysteria. They have practically no significant external differences from their relatives. One of the main achievements that gave a serious impetus to the development of human civilization was the domestication of various animals. Throughout almost the entire history of modern man, they have been met with them. Some of them serve as assistants in various activities. Others are bred to obtain food. There are even animals that don't bring any practical benefit but still live in our homes. Today, we'll talk about how and why man tamed animals and when this happened. By subscribing to the Age of Dinosaurs channel, you'll be able to learn about the release of new videos before other users. We also encourage viewers to more actively express their opinions through likes and comments. These actions help in the promotion and development of the channel. Dogs became people's first pets. According to the most common version, this happened about 14,000 years ago in the Middle East or Southeast Asia. But there's another theory. At one of the sites of ancient people, in the Chauvet Cave in France, traces of a wolf and a child were discovered. They were located in the same geological layer. Their age, according to various estimates, ranges from 26 to 33,000 years. But besides wolves, the supposed ancestors of domestic dogs may be jackals or the so-called proto-dogs, which are currently an extinct species. Of course, this did not happen overnight. Wild predatory animals and humans gradually developed a mechanism for coexistence beneficial to both species. Wolves, or other predators, often approached human camps. Apparently, at some point, some of them decided that they could get food from a person not only by attacking. The hunters gave away some pieces of their prey, and the animals did not allow anyone else to approach the sites. Gradually, natural selection occurred in favor of the most friendly animals. Others could not find a common language with people and remained in the forests and steppes. Being social animals, dogs are distinguished by loyalty and high intelligence. Over time, they become part of many human cultures, friends and family members of many people. They became indispensable hunting assistants and also guarded the homes of their owners. There's also an opinion that people kept small dogs with them in case of hunger. But the first reliably known breeds bred by people appeared in the Middle East about 5.5 thousand years ago. It's noteworthy that the wild relatives of modern dogs practically do not bark, but our pets use this tool all the time. It's believed that people kept the noisiest dogs with them because they used them as alarms. Gradually, this genetic predisposition became established as one of the important characteristics. Between 10 and 12,000 years ago, sheep, goats, pigs, and cows were domesticated in the Middle East and Southwest Asia. These important farm animals allowed people to move from hunting to breeding species for food. The emergence of cattle breeding allowed humanity to switch to a sedentary, or at least not completely nomadic lifestyle. The sheep became the second animal to be domesticated by humans. This happened about 12,000 years ago. Its ancestors considered to be the wild sheep, mouflon. Outwardly, it does not closely resemble modern domestic sheep. Its fur is shorter, its horns are larger, and its body is leaner. It turned out to be much more profitable for people to keep these shy animals at home and receive from them not only meat, but also wool and milk. Wild boars began to be kept in captivity in the Middle East about 11,000 years ago. They were a source of meat and durable hides. Their bristles were also used in various crafts. Practically omnivorous and very unpretentious animals began to quickly gain weight and reproduce willingly. During the process of domestication, due to improved living conditions, they lost their thick bristles. There are now more than 1 billion domestic pigs around the planet. This is the most numerous farm animal. Domestic cows appeared about 10,000 years ago simultaneously in several regions: the Middle East, Altai, and North Africa. Their ancestors were wild aurochs, the last of whom died in the early 17th century. The main reason for the extinction of these animals was hunting. Since the Stone Age, people have organized driven hunts for large ungulates. But in parallel, there was a process of domestication of aurochs, and now their descendants live side by side with people. It's noteworthy that in India, the process of domesticating cows happened a little differently. Firstly, this only happened 7,000 years ago. Secondly, the ancestor of the Indian domestic cow was the wild zebu bull. And thirdly, wild representatives of this species still exist. The most ancient evidence of keeping domestic goats was found in the territory of modern Iran. During excavations of ancient settlements located in the Zagros Mountains, a large number of bones and skulls of these animals were found. Their age ranged from 10 to 11,000 years. Genetically, these goats turned out to be an intermediate link between wild Persian goats and modern domestic goats. Cats, like dogs, have become companion animals for many people. That is, they were not tamed to be eaten. These animals are intended to bring certain benefits to the farm. Cats became pets approximately 9.5 thousand years ago. The first mentioning of this fact is associated with ancient Egypt. Cats were also actively used in the Middle East. The ancestor of the modern domestic cat is considered to be a wild Libyan, also known as Nubian or North African steppe cat. Scientists associate their appearance in human homes with the advent of agriculture. Various rodents regularly appeared in the barns where grain was stored. Wild cats began to hunt them, and people tried to feed such useful animals. It's noteworthy that genetically, modern cats, except for specially bred breeds, are practically no different from their wild ancestors. About 8,000 years ago, the inhabitants of India and Southeast Asia began to bring bank chickens from the jungle and settle them near their homes. These jungle fowl still live in the wild. They're friendly and practically not afraid of people. Externally, they're also not very different from modern domestic chickens. Roosters have a slightly brighter color, and hens are brownish with yellow or green feathers in the neck area. Also, female banker chickens don't have tufts. Since ancient times, people have actively hunted large ungulates, including various types of horses. For example, the Indians of North America completely exterminated wild mustangs on their continent. They were able to acquire horses again only after the arrival of white people. But about 6,000 years ago, the Botai people, who lived on the territory of modern Kazakhstan, decided that such animals would be much more useful in a tamed state. According to another version, the domestication of the horse happened somewhere in the southern Urals. It's not for nothing that the so-called Sintashta culture was born there about 4,000 years ago. It was the inhabitants of the South Ural steppes who gave the world the most formidable weapon of the Bronze Age, war chariots. Of course, the first domestic horses were also considered a source of meat and milk. They began to harness them to plows, carts, and chariots much later. At that time, horses were no different from their ancestors, wild tarpans. These horses were much smaller and more unprepossessing than modern horses. Unfortunately, there are no longer any of them left in nature. The last tarpan died in 1918. Looking at their steppe neighbors, who actively used horses in their farming, the Siberian people tried to tame the reindeer. They managed to do this about 2,000 years ago. Previously, it was believed that this happened 1,000 years later, but recent discoveries of harness elements have put everything in place. For the Finno-Ugric and Siberian peoples, living in the very north of the Eurasian continent, as well as the indigenous people of Canada, reindeer have become the most valuable resource. They're actively used as mounts. Deer also serve as a source of meat, milk, and hides. At the same time, domesticated deer are genetically no different from their wild relatives, except that free-living deer are larger in size. At the same time, both of them are forced to roam from one pasture to another. This happens because deer are omnivores and leave virtually no vegetation behind. They don't even disdain small animals like lemmings. Representatives of camelids are another important ungulate for humans. They've been domesticated on almost every continent. The ancestors of the first modern species appeared about 40 to 45 million years ago in North America, about 25 million years ago. Some of them moved to Asia and some to South America. They first gave rise to camels and then to llamas and their relatives. During the Pliocene era in North America, camels became extinct along with the rest of the megafauna. Now in South America, there are two types of domestic llamas. There are llamas and alpacas. It's believed that they were domesticated 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. There are also two wild species now living in the Andes, the guanaco and the vicuña. Dromedary camels have survived only as domestic animals. They live in the Middle East and North Africa, but in the 19th century, they were introduced to Australia. Over time, these camels simply went wild. Now there are more than 1 million individuals living there, and Australia is the only place where dromedaries can be found in the wild. Bactrian camels live in Central Asia. At the same time, a small number of their wild relatives, the haftagai, have survived here. It's difficult to say when Asian camels were domesticated, but in any case, this happened from 3,000 to 6,000 years ago. Throughout its history, humanity's domesticated a large number of different animals, but not all of them can be fully called homemade. Monkeys, birds, reptiles, and insects live in people's homes. People even raise crocodiles on special farms, but it's difficult to call these animals truly domestic. Some of the tamed animals can no longer live without people. Others quickly run wild if a person's not around. Some species of domestic pets are capable of interbreeding with their wild relatives, while others do not even reproduce in captivity. Man actively uses these creatures for various purposes, but naturally, no one was interested in the opinion of the animals themselves during domestication. In our videos, we've repeatedly talked about the most unusual animals on the planet. Moreover, different issues included both extinct and currently existing species. But every time while preparing for the next video, we make sure that we've not introduced you to even a small part of the unique animals. After all, evolution sometimes follows the most unconventional paths, forcing animals to acquire bizarre appearances or special adaptations. And despite all their strangeness, all these features have led to the fact that unusual-looking animals only win in the competition for a place in the sun. Today, we've prepared another batch of stories about the most amazing animals in the history of the Earth. Subscribe to the Age of Dinosaurs channel. This will allow you to not only learn a lot about the evolution of life on Earth, but our subscribers will be the first to know about the release of new videos. You all can help promote the channel with your comments and likes as well. Mary River Turtle. This unique turtle was described by scientists only in 1994, although by this time it's one of the most popular pets among Australian lovers of these amphibians for about 20 years. Turtle researcher John Cann became interested in the hatchlings being sold in Sydney for home aquariums. After much searching, he discovered that they were sourced from the Brisbane region. It turned out that this turtle lives only in the Mary River in Queensland. At the same time, it's the largest freshwater turtle in the world, but by the time it was discovered, it could already be included in the Red Book. Due to market demand, this turtle's egg laying was mercilessly plundered. They acquired the ability to reproduce only at the age of 25 years. This led to a sharp decline in the natural population. As an adult, this turtle has a streamlined, low shell, elongated neck, and webbed hind feet. Notably, it's one of several species of turtles that breathe through the cloaca. There, they have special glands that allow them to absorb oxygen from the water. This feature allows them to stay underwater for up to 72 hours. Another notable feature of Mary River turtles is their distinctive hairstyle. As they age, algae settles on their shell and head, making their appearance very diverse and unusual. Pike blenny. This unusual fish lives along the Pacific coast of North and Central America. They live in holes at the bottom. It can also use empty shells or even discarded glass bottles as shelters. The pike blenny is the largest representative of its family. It can grow up to 30 centimeters in length. You can recognize it by its inconspicuous grayish-brown color, thin elongated body, and large head. There's a long fin on their back, and closer to their head, there's a small appendage resembling a bang. The unusualness of this bottom-dwelling fish lies in the structure of its mouth parts. This is especially pronounced in males. Their jaws, studded with sharp long teeth, can open in all directions. At the same time, the dog behaves very aggressively. They're capable of attacking an enemy that's larger in size. The dog's not shy about biting scuba divers. It's not fatal, but very painful. Also, with the help of their mouths, male pike dogs sort out relationships among themselves. They also guard the fertilized eggs until the fry hatch. Okapi. This unique ungulate lives only in the jungles of the Republic of Congo in Central Africa. At the moment, there's only about 25,000 of them left, and they're listed in the Red Book. The okapi is the only surviving member of the Giraffidae, other than the giraffes themselves. Outwardly, these animals resemble a bizarre cross between a giraffe and a zebra. Their legs have a characteristic striped color, their muzzle is lighter, and the rest of their body is dark in color. This forest giraffe grows up to 1.7 meters at the shoulders and about 2 meters in length. They weigh up to 250 kilograms. Their neck isn't as long as that of their closest relatives, but in terms of tongue length, they're in no way inferior to a giraffe. With its help, okapi can lick its own eyes. These animals are very shy and cautious. It's noteworthy that they communicate with each other using low-frequency sounds, elusive to the human ear. They were first described in 1901, but photographs in the wild were taken using a camera trap only in 2008. About 100 of them currently live in zoos around the world. Irrawaddy dolphin. Despite the fact that these cetaceans are dolphins, they're very different in appearance from most of their relatives. They live in Southeast Asia, mainly in the Mekong River Delta. Moreover, some dolphins never enter rivers, while others never go out to sea. Based on this characteristic, scientists have divided Irrawaddy dolphins into two separate subspecies. But that's not what makes them remarkable. A distinctive feature of Irrawaddy dolphins is the complete absence of a beak. They can also be recognized by a small dorsal fin located closer to the tail. In Cambodia and Laos, these dolphins are considered sacred animals. For a long time, they've been helping local fishermen to drive schools of fish into nets, but it's precisely this feature that's the reason for the gradual extinction of this species. Young dolphins can't always orient themselves correctly during the hunt and often get entangled in nets. Now, there's only about 200 of these dolphins left, and about the same number of related Australian snub-nosed dolphins. Glaucus nudibranch. This type of nudibranch mollusk differs from its relatives in that it lives not on the bottom, but on the surface of the water. They're sometimes mistakenly called blue dragons, but they're a slightly different species of mollusk. Nudibranches are commonly called blue caps, sea damselfishes, or even sea rockets. They float on water due to surface tension. Glaucus can also swallow an air bubble and thus maintain its buoyancy. It's also noteworthy that these creatures are hermaphrodites, but they still need a partner to mate. They mate on the ventral side, and then both mollusks lay eggs. They're interesting not only for their appearance, but also for some behavioral features. Many of the marine organisms it feeds on are poisonous, but the sea swallow is not only resistant to strong poisons, but also knows how to accumulate them in its body, and also poison the victim when it bites. But this mollusk is completely safe for humans. The most interesting prey of this creature is the Valella jellyfish, or swallowtail. She's also unique in her own way. Externally, this jellyfish resembles a round raft with a small sail. It moves along the surface of the water, and many marine inhabitants travel on its back. The sea swallow also does the same, but if necessary, it also gradually eats its transport. Glass frogs. Unique frogs with a transparent abdomen were discovered at the end of the 19th century by the Spanish zoologist Marcos Jimenez de la Espada. From above, they look like ordinary frogs, but if you look at them from below, you can see all the internal organs in detail and even observe the process of egg growth. Also, in some species, the skin on the paws is transparent. Today, they're classified into a separate family, consisting of 12 genera and 60 species ranging in size from 3 to 7.5 centimeters. All glass frogs live in Central and South America. A distinctive feature of this family is that the eyes are directed forward rather than located on the sides of the frog's head. They live in trees and only come close to water to lay eggs. Moreover, they attach it to plants and stones near waterfalls or above ponds. Scientists believe that in this way, frog eggs are protected from being eaten by predatory fish. It's also noteworthy that Japanese scientists were able to breed completely transparent frogs. This was done in order to study the process of organ formation and the course of various diseases, including the growth of cancerous tumors. For the experiments, they used a local brown frog. The transparency gene for her is recessive, but when crossing two individuals with recessive genes using artificial insemination, it was possible to obtain transparent tadpoles. As they develop, scientists can observe the process of transformation into an adult from the inside, but their offspring are no longer viable. Scientists also stated that, if necessary, they can also breed luminous frogs. Smallmouth macropina. Continuing the glass theme, we'll tell you about another transparent creature. This deep-sea fish was accidentally caught in a fishing net back in 1939, and since then, its structure has haunted scientists. It's clear that their head was a transparent dome, but it was damaged in the process of being lifted from the depths due to a pressure difference. It was only possible to obtain a photograph of a smallmouth macropina in its natural habitat in 2004, and in 2009, we managed to catch several specimens and place them in an aquarium. And this fish presented scientists with many surprises. It lives at a depth of 500 to 800 meters, and possibly even deeper. Its habitat includes the waters of the Pacific Ocean near the coasts of Japan, Canada, and the USA, as well as the Bering Sea and the Kuril Islands. It turned out that this fish, about 15 centimeters long, has more than just a transparent head. Her eyes are located inside this dome and, if necessary, can look both forward and upward. Macropina looks out for prey above itself through a transparent dome, and then assumes a vertical position and grabs it. At this moment, the eyes shift 90 degrees. Due to the small size of the mouth opening, the fish can only feed on zooplankton, small fish and crustaceans. Its diet also includes poisonous siphonophores. It's possible that the eyes are covered under a dome to protect them from attacks from their tentacles. When creating our videos, we never tire of being amazed at the variety of options for the development of living organisms. Over millions of years of evolution, a huge number of the most unusual creatures have appeared on Earth. But all their oddities are actually the result of adaptation to changes in living conditions. So, here's another portion of stories about the most unusual modern animals. Subscribe to the Age of Dinosaurs channel, and then you could be the first to know about the release of new videos. We also encourage channel viewers to be more active and express their opinions in the form of comments and likes under the videos. This helps in the promotion and development of the channel. Also, with your help, we'll be able to tell as many site users as possible about the evolution of wildlife. Peacock spider. Australia is the homeland of several dozen species of this unusual spider, and only one species lives in China. Like many Australian spiders, these animals are poisonous, but they pose absolutely no threat to humans. All of them are no larger than a grain of rice. We won't even feel their bite. But for those who are also small in size, these spiders are very dangerous. They have excellent vision, but only 2 of their 6 or 8 eyes see color. These spiders do not spin webs and hunt by jumping on their prey. Thanks to special hairs on their paws, they can feel the smallest air vibrations within a radius of 20 centimeters from them. Considering the size of the hunter, this is quite a long distance. The length of a peacock spider's jump exceeds its size by about 20 times. The prey of these predators, as a rule, are flies, grasshoppers, moths, and winged ants. But they do not miss the opportunity to eat their weaker relatives. They also have a brain large enough for spiders, but they did not become famous for their intelligence and cruelty. Male peacock spiders have very bright colors and perform stunning mating dances. This dance can last up to 50 minutes. The male's torment stops when the female pays attention to him, but if she doesn't like the dance, the exhausted dancer can simply be eaten. But even after mating, the female can snack on her partner. She herself, having laid her eggs, does not leave them for a minute. As a result, the mother dies of exhaustion. In general, the lifespan of a peacock spider is about a year. Imperial tamarin. The jungles of South America are home to a huge number of different monkeys. Among them, tamarins, belonging to the marmoset family, stand out for their unusual appearance. In total, 10 species of these small monkeys are known. Each of them boasts some unusual external features. They could be colored white, black, or brownish yellow. Some species of tamarins have reddish or golden fur, while others have a luxurious, almost lion-like mane. But the most memorable appearance is the imperial tamarins. They're the owners of luxurious white mustaches, eyebrows, and beards. It's believed that they received their name in honor of the German Kaiser Wilhelm II. He also had a bushy mustache. In addition to beautiful facial hair, these small monkeys are distinguished by a rather interesting structure of their families. Imperial tamarins live in groups of 10 to 15 individuals. The dominant position in them is occupied by adult females. By the way, they're also decorated with mustaches and beards. These females mate with 2 males at the same time. Caring for the offspring also often falls on male parents. Each group occupies an area of about 50 hectares. It's noteworthy that these monkeys mark their trees with special pheromones. It's also interesting that tamarins distinguish only 2 colors. This dichromatic vision helps them better see predators in dense foliage. The main enemies of tamarins are snakes, predatory cats, and birds. But mainly, the population of these monkeys is reduced by people who catch animals for sale. Anglerfish. Anglerfish are a type of deep-sea fish. These include more than 350 species and 18 families. Due to their unique appearance, anglerfish are called monkfish or sea devils. The largest of them grow up to 2 meters and weigh about 60 kilograms. Anglerfish meat is considered a delicacy in many countries and is obtained commercially. These fish are widely known because of their unusual way of hunting. The fish have a camouflage color and practically merge with the bottom. Only a long process sticks out, glowing at the end. Marine inhabitants, attracted by this light, themselves practically go into the mouth of the predator. Interestingly, the anglerfish does not know how to estimate the size of its prey, and his jaws act like a trap. The fish can neither swallow its prey nor let it go. As a result, both the victim and the hunter die. Colonies of bacteria living in the fish's body emit a pale green glow. These creatures have long developed a mutually beneficial symbiosis, but anglerfish have other lesser-known symbionts. The fact is that the described method of nutrition and lifestyle is typical only for females. Male anglerfish are very small in size and look more like a tadpole than a monkfish. The meaning of their life is to find a female. The male attaches himself to his partner's back, and after a short period of time, their circulatory systems merge into one. Moreover, several males can live on one female at the same time. Their functions are reduced to performing a single task: fertilization of eggs. After the female lays the eggs, she leaves the spawning site. Otherwise, she may immediately eat her offspring. The male anglerfish, even after his death, does not tear himself away from the female. It becomes just another growth on her body. It's noteworthy that this method of coexistence forced anglerfish to completely abandon their immunity. This allows you to avoid rejection when circulatory systems merge into a single network. How these fish have not yet died out from some kind of infection remains a mystery. Venezuelan poodle moth. Few people would agree that insects look attractive at high magnification. Discovered in 2009, the poodle moth is a rare exception to this rule. His appearance is so unusual and interesting that most people simply cannot cause rejection. It's white and black in color, and its entire body is covered with fine down that resembles fur. So far, this representative of Lepidoptera does not have an official Latin name. It's most commonly called the poodle moth, or horned moth. At the moment, not a single specimen of this creature has been caught or described. The public learned of its existence from 6 photographs taken by a zoologist from Kyrgyzstan, Arthur Onker. It's difficult to draw any conclusions about the species and lifestyle of this moth based on its appearance. There are suggestions that they're relatives of butterflies from the bear family. They're also covered with a kind of fur, and in the shape of the antennae, the poodle moth resembles representatives of the cocoon moth family. It most likely feeds on nectar, like other tropical moths. Brazilian yabiru. This species of stork lives over a vast territory from Mexico to Argentina, but they settle only along the banks of rivers, lakes, and swamps. A colony can number several hundred individuals, but only a few of them have nested in recent years. Yabiru form long-term pairs and build permanent nests on treetops. Now, due to human activities, the population of these birds is gradually declining. The Brazilian variety of yabiru storks has a height of up to 120 centimeters and a wingspan of more than 2.5 meters. They weigh up to 8 kilograms. Their feathers are painted white. Their black head and neck are completely naked. The stork also has a red collar on its neck, but the main distinguishing feature of this bird is its throat pouch. Male yabiru can inflate it and make various sounds. This bag is mainly needed to attract females. They, like all other storks, feed on fish and amphibians. Moreover, yabiru are distinguished by great gluttony. Such a large bird must use cliffs or trees to take off. The stork can also take a long run, like an airplane on the runway. It's also very difficult for them to fly in windless weather. White leaf-nosed bat. When mentioning bats, most people probably don't have the most pleasant associations. These creatures don't have the most pleasant appearance and are associated with damp, dark caves and sometimes with vampirism. But white leaf noses are not like that at all. These fluffy lumps are more like plush toys, and they eat exclusively fruits. Their body length does not exceed 5 centimeters and they weigh no more than 30 grams. They're distinguished by an unusual leaf-shaped growth on their muzzle. It's believed that this shape helps to better capture acoustic vibrations. The ears and nose of these flyers are bright yellow. This is due to the accumulation of large amounts of carotenoids in the skin of animals. Mice get this substance from the fruit of the fig tree. It's these fruits that leaf noses prefer to eat. In many ways, this puts them at risk of extinction. Attachment to one type of food can play a cruel joke on white leaf noses. By the way, females prefer to choose males with the brightest ears and nose as a mating partner. This color indicates that the male is healthy and full of strength. During the mating period, the male forms a whole harem. He protects them during pregnancy from the attacks of other applicants. Those who aren't lucky enough to have a mate live in a common group until the next mating season. Leaf noses are also distinguished by their unusual way of building dwellings. They find a tree with large leaves near the feeding site and make a kind of tent out of them. The mice gnaw the veins in the leaf folds, forming an original shelter. Up to 1.5 dozen residents can live under it. It's believed that the sun's rays passing through the leaf mask the white coats of bats, giving them a greenish tint. Also, some scientists suggest that the white lumps hanging under the leaf may be associated with fruit.
Statements regularly appear in various pseudoscientist circles that humanity is not the first civilization on Earth. A large number of hypotheses are put forward, supported by a variety of arguments. Some of them do not stand up to any, even the most primitive criticism. Others are quite justified, but have not yet been confirmed in any way by real archaeology and other scientists. Today, we're going to talk about where such theories come from and what real benefits scientists can derive from such research. Subscribe to our channel and you'll be the first to know about the release of new videos, and keep abreast of a scientific view on the development of life on our planet. We also encourage viewers to more actively express their opinions in the comments and support the work of the channel creators with likes. Even in the comments under our videos, the opinions of those who deny the theory of evolution and doubt the veracity of the conclusions made by scientists often appear. All over the world, supporters of the flat Earth theory and other anti-scientific theories have become more active. Therefore, it's not surprising that people find evidence of the presence of unknown civilizations in a variety of things. But for a full discussion on this topic, we first need to decide what civilization is. In different contexts, this concept has many interpretations and definitions. The word itself comes from the Latin concept meaning state or civil. Back in the 19th century, Adam Ferguson proposed 3 stages of social development: savagery, barbarism, and civilization. And now, this word often refers to certain social, cultural, technical, and other achievements of mankind. It is believed that civilization must have certain characteristics, such as class division of society, availability of states, invention of writing, legislation and tax system, construction of cities, availability of crafts, construction of monumental buildings, owned science and art. Using these certain criteria, various scientists have identified up to 21 civilizations. Many researchers have defined civilizations according to cultural, religious, and geopolitical parameters. You can often hear expressions such as Egyptian civilization, Slavic civilization, Roman, and so on. More broadly, according to cultural characteristics, the so-called Western and Eastern civilizations can be distinguished. An example of a religious division is the presence of a Christian, or more narrowly, Orthodox civilization. In 1959, after lengthy discussions, it was decided to reduce the number of signs of civilization to 3 main ones: writing, cities, and monuments. Even if we do not take into account local civilizations such as the Babylonian, Slavic, and others, the global human civilization has all these features. Supporters of the existence of other earthly civilizations more ancient than humanity gives various arguments in favor of their existence. No matter who ruled this planet before humans, if we take into account the theory of their existence, they must have left some evidence of their signs of civilization. Let us immediately make a reservation that the arguments that scientists across the world have conspired and are hiding the truth from people can be called absolute nonsense. The goal of life of a real scientist, regardless of what science he's engaged in, is to search for the truth. The discovery of evidence confirming or refuting any theory will immediately perpetuate the name of the discoverer for centuries. During the existence of science, its official view on many issues has changed a huge number of times. Sometimes new evidence completely turned the idea of a particular subject to the exact opposite. It's the illustration of such things that we can cite our long understanding about the discovery and study of Spinosaurs. In about 100 years, its appearance in scientific reconstructions has changed beyond recognition. The reason for this was the discovery and the description of new fossils. Among the most popular representatives of other civilizations who lived on Earth, there are often 5 or 6 meter giants. There are also versions about the immigrants from other planets with their blasters and spaceships. Also, let's not forget the reptilians. We can't live without them now. Those who believe in their existence cite either the Egyptian pyramids or Stonehenge as evidence. According to these people, our ancestors were so primitive that they could not build structures of such a cyclopean scale. On one good educational internet portal, they even came up with a special name for such people: unskilled. These same unskilled are not embarrassed by the presence of dozens, maybe hundreds, of experiments to restore the technologies of that time. Using a bronze tool available to the ancient Egyptians, scientists sawed limestone, obtaining blocks of the required size. They also moved stones like that of the form of the base of Stonehenge and set them upright. That is, the builders of these monumental structures did not necessarily have to be huge in size or use alien technology. In addition, it's worth remembering that writing and statehood are important signs of civilization. The ancient Egyptian civilization had complete order with this. Even they had a serious bureaucracy and reporting. And if no drawings or descriptions of construction technology had been discovered yet, then invoices for the delivery of materials, tools, and provisions to the shock construction sites of ancient Egypt fell into the hands of scientists quite a long time ago. But archives and libraries written by ancient reptilians or giants have not been yet made public anywhere. There is no evidence of finds of skeletons of giant humanoids in caves in Alaska during the gold rush or in any other place. But the most stubborn supporters of such fabrications managed to declare that under Peter the Giant, no one built St. Petersburg on the shores of the Gulf of Finland. It was abandoned by ancient giants and was simply completely dug out of the ground. Indeed, in many houses, the ceiling height exceeds 5 to 6 meters. At the same time, no one's bothered by the presence of a large number of buildings with normal ceilings, in which 6-meter giants could probably only crawl. It is also interesting that millions of years ago, someone built a city following the architectural fashion of the early 18th century. Probably the same theories will be born in the heads of our descendants when archaeologists dig up buildings like the Kremlin Palace or the production workshops of Eurovagon-Savod. So, we cannot attribute any of the known monumental buildings to the creation of non-human technologies. Little is known about the writing of disappeared civilizations. The presence of cities built by representatives of other intelligent species is also a big question. Judging by the history of human development, the presence of a highly developed technical civilization should leave quite a lot of traces. The planet will have to deal with the waste of our modern industry for many more tens of millions of years. But neither on the seabed nor in the depths of Earth's crust has a single artifact been found that was 100% made by someone else. But the issue of searching for lost civilizations can also be approached from a scientific point of view. By studying the impact of human activity on climate change, we can identify time periods in the history of our planet with similar changes. Climatologist Gavin Schmidt and astronomer Adam Frank, in the course of similar studies, put forward the so-called Silurian hypothesis. It got its name from the race of intelligent reptiles from the TV series Doctor Who live on Earth in the Silurian period. It is this hypothesis that supporters of the overwhelming majority of conspiracy theories rely on. But we should not forget that it is still a hypothesis, that is, an assumption that requires verification and proof. As the educational animated series Dinosaur Train teaches us, the essence of the hypothesis is that in the history of the Earth, there has already been at least one technically advanced civilization. Traces of such a civilization should be looked for by changes in the planetary climate and the presence of isotopic anomalies of various chemical elements, including oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and uranium. The most important problem of those conspiracy theorists who refer to the Silurian hypotheses is that it is unsubstantiated. The scientists themselves created it to assess the possibility of searching for life on other planets. In relation to the Earth, at the moment, the influence of a technically advanced civilization can only be assessed by the activities of people. Since the mid-18th century, a huge amount of hydrocarbon combustion products, coal, oil, gas, have been released into the atmosphere. There is also a massive loss of forests, changes in the landscape, and a large amount of plastic waste. In different geological periods, climate and landscape changes took place, but scientists have not yet been able to detect other traces of the presence of a man-made civilization of terrestrial or extraterrestrial origin. In their research, Frank and Schmidt rely heavily on the Drake equation. Astrophysicist Frank Drake developed this formula in 1961 to theoretically estimate the number of advanced civilizations that our Milky Way galaxy can accommodate. It takes into account such parameters as rate of star formation in our galaxy, percentage of stars that have planets, the number of terrestrial planets around each star that has planets, percentage of terrestrial planets that have developed life, percentage of planets with life on which intelligent life has evolved, the percentage of intelligent species that have developed technologies that can be discovered by an external civilization like ours, for example, radio signals, and the average number of years required for an advanced civilization to detect detectable signals. Since then, scientists have learned to determine the rate of star formation and have discovered many theoretical suitable planets for life. But so far, only humanity is responsible for the indicator of the presence of actually found intelligent civilizations. Finding actual traces of another civilization will immediately increase the mathematical chances that we are not alone in this universe. I would like to believe that in the future, we will not be able to argue with the unfounded arguments of supporters of conspiracy theorists, but to begin to establish interaction with our neighbors in the galaxy. If you are more interested in getting acquainted with the real achievements of modern scientists, well, we recommend that you pay attention to previous issues. They talk about scientifically proven hypotheses about the emergence of life on Earth and the evolution of various species of living beings. Our videos also talk about the problems of modern ecology and the relationship between people and nature.